Hello, everybody. This is Anthony Beyond from Mission Start Podcast. A little quick note to this week's podcast of the Conover. It will be a two-parter, but it will be two episodes. As far as like one part will be uploaded today, or listening to this on a Thursday, and the other part will be tomorrow. And for the reason being is that it's a rather long Anime Expo podcast, so. I don't want you guys to be sitting there for the next 3 hours listening to our banter. Anyways, all right. Well, that's all I need to say, and enjoy the show, guys. Hello, everybody. This is Anthony Beyond from Mission Start Podcast, and this is the Conover, the AX edition. Anyway,
Dun, 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 dun.
anyways, I cannot talk tonight on the podcast either. So tonight, I'm joined here by Jeremy.
Hey everybody, how you doing? I am Jeremy. I'm the host of the Rollin' 20s. We are the show that puts way too many Bulbasaurs in one ball.
That's right, folks. You can also listen.
You can refute that all you want.
Oh no, it's cool. It's all good. For people who heard Jeremy podcast before, be sure to check it out on the Rolling 20s on our website just after this podcast. But anyways, we're here to talk about your experience, Jeremy, at Anime Expo. And first off, I have to say, like, I was one of those people that was sitting at home seeing everybody's Facebook status of like just everything awesome that was happening at Anime Expo, just literally on Facebook, and I was just so sad. Just like,
yeah, certain people's Facebooks, I'm sure, lit up like Christmas trees for a while there.
Yeah. They even had some live streams. Actually, it was Funimation was actually hosting a live stream on their YouTube channel. So literally you could like sit there and watch like as if you were being there at the con in a certain way. But yeah, so tell me your experience at Anime Expo this past weekend. How was it?
It's one of those things where despite the fact that a lot of people mark me as a naysayer and a negative person, I always do go in hoping for a lot to occur and interesting things to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And this year I would say I saw less interesting things than in previous years. I don't know if the fans are getting jaded. I don't know if there was something else that just caught their attention. I don't know if maybe people were sleeping in, but it just seemed like things were kind of underplayed this year.
What do you mean?
There wasn't as many quality cosplayers as I've come to expect. There was a lot of them for sure, probably more than any other house, but it seemed like a lot of the A game was left at home.
Really?
That's my opinion anyway. It also seemed like people were less energetic over the panels and the other things going on. That could have been one of several reasons. On top of which, the building was stupidly crowded.
Yeah, I read in your report that there was 9,000 plus new attendees this year.
That's their estimate. I don't know if that's the reality because I thought after the X Games left, of course, things would calm down a bit and we'd have a little more room to move. What I found by looking around, though, was that there were lots of people around there with hotel rooms. It seems like there's a lot of people who just don't want to traverse the distance either by foot or by shuttle between the convention center and the hotel more than maybe once, twice a day. So instead, they're just kind of sheltering in place.
Interesting. Huh. That's very interesting. Normally it would be the opposite when it comes to anime conventions, especially of the scale and size.
You would think so, but I mean, honestly, I found a lot of faces of people I knew had rooms, but in previous years, there was at least a street between LA Live and the convention center that was blocked, and that did not happen this year.
Huh.
So you are left, unless you want to jaywalk in an area where trucks are coming through, with one of two access points, both of which are not exactly quick lights.
Interesting. Okay. Interesting. So you said there weren't that many top quality cosplays that you were seeing around the convention. Um,
Well, I saw some, but I just, like I said, not near as many as I've come to expect.
Interesting, because I was watching some of the videos that people put out recently, the cosplay music videos of
Mm.
these great cosplays, especially the lead cosplayers. Wow. Um, and That's interesting to hear that because like you would think of all anime conventions that would the top dogs or that. Hello, everybody. This is Anthony Beyond from Mission Start Podcast. A little quick note to this week's podcast of the Conover. It will be a two-parter, but it will be two episodes. As far as like one part would be uploaded today, or listening to this on a Thursday, and the other part will be tomorrow. For the reason being is that it's a rather long Anime Expo podcast, so I don't want you guys to be sitting there for the next 3 hours listening to our banter. Anyways, all right, well, that's all I need to say, and enjoy the show, guys. Hello, everybody. This is Anthony Beyond from Mission Start Podcast, and this is the Conover, the AX edition. Anyway,
Dun, 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 dun,
wah,
dun.
wah. Anyways, I cannot talk tonight on the podcast either. So tonight, I'm joined here by Jeremy.
Hey everybody, how you doing? I am Jeremy. I'm the host of the Rollin' 20s. We are the show that puts way too many Bulbasaurs in one ball.
That's right, folks. You can also listen.
You can refute that all you want.
Oh no, it's cool. It's all good. For people who heard Jeremy podcast before, be sure to check it out on the Rolling 20s on our website just after this podcast. But anyways, we're here to talk about your experience, Jeremy, at Anime Expo. And first off, I have to say, like, I was one of those people that was sitting at home seeing everybody's Facebook status of like just everything awesome that was happening at Anime Expo, just literally on my Facebook, and I was just so sad. Just like,
yeah, certain people's Facebooks, I'm sure, lit up like Christmas trees for a while there.
Yeah. They even had some live streams actually. It was Funimation was actually hosting a live stream on their YouTube channel. So literally you could like sit there and watch like as if you were being there at the con in a certain way. But yeah, so tell me your experience at Anime Expo this past weekend. How was it?
It's one of those things where despite the fact that a lot of people mark me as a naysayer and a negative person, I always do go in hoping for a lot to occur and interesting things to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And this year I would say I saw less interesting things than in previous years. I don't know if the fans are getting jaded. I don't know if there was something else that just caught their attention. I don't know if maybe people were sleeping in, but it just seemed like things were kind of underplayed this year.
What do you mean?
There wasn't as many quality cosplayers as I've come to expect. There was a lot of them for sure, probably more than any other house, but it seemed like a lot of the A game was left at home.
Really?
That's my opinion anyway. It also seemed like people were less energetic over the panels and the other things going on. That could have been one of several reasons. On top of which, the building was stupidly crowded.
Yeah, I read in your report that there was 9,000 plus new attendees this year.
That's their estimate. I don't know if that's the reality because I thought after the X Games left, of course, things would calm down a bit and we'd have a little more room to move. What I found by looking around, though, was that there were lots of people around there with hotel rooms. It seems like there's a lot of people who just don't want to traverse the distance either by foot or by shuttle between the convention center and the hotel more than maybe once, twice a day. So instead, they're just kind of sheltering in place.
Interesting. Huh. That's very interesting. Normally it would be the opposite when it comes to anime conventions, especially of the scale and size.
You would think so, but I mean, honestly, I found a lot of faces of people I knew had rooms, but in previous years, there was at least a street between LA Live and the convention center that was blocked,
Uh-huh.
and that did not happen this year.
Huh.
So you are left, unless you want to jaywalk in an area where trucks are coming through, with one of two access points, both of which are not exactly quick lights.
Interesting. Okay. Interesting. So you said there weren't that many top quality cosplays that you were seeing around the convention. Um,
Well, I saw some, but I just, like I said, not near as many as I've come to expect.
Interesting. Because I was watching some of the videos that people put out recently, the cosplay music videos of these great cosplays, especially the lead cosplayers. Wow. Um, And that's interesting to hear that because like you would think of all anime conventions that would the top dogs or that the top cosplayers would come out would be Anime Expo. Just
Mhm.
because at least when I was there, there were just a sheer amount of just like well defined and just great crafted cosplays just all around as far as the eye can see.
Right.
But
And there
interesting.
there was a share of that for sure. I mean, there were times where I just turned around and went, "Oh my god!" But all in all, I'd say person to person, Fanime had more "Oh my god" moments as far as cosplay.
Interesting. Okay. Now you said it was really crowded. Like
Oh god,
I
yeah.
saw some videos. Okay, so was it to the point? Okay, it was a credit on each day, or was it crowded only on certain days?
It was crowded pretty much each day. It was very
Wow.
consistent in that regard, with the
Wow.
exception of the morning of day 4. You know, the day a lot of people are abandoning their
Oh
hotels.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
You know, that was the one day I actually shopped in peace, and I didn't feel like I had to jump out of the way of 30 people.
Wow. It was that crowded. That's insane.
Yeah,
That's insane to think about it because like the convention center in downtown LA is huge as it is. Like to most people who don't know, that convention center also holds and hosts the video game industry E3. It happens every year.
as well as the LA Car Show, which is like one of the biggest in this country, as far as I know.
Right. So to think that the convention center will be that full and to be filled up rather quickly is a one is I'm amazed by it, and at the same time it's almost like an accomplishment at the same time.
It's almost an accomplishment, but it does seem like there was misuse of spaces. I don't know if Hall G next to the dealers hall is being used.
hmm
I I think that's where a couple of concerts went down, but I'm not sure. The West Hall, most of the space in that dealers hall or that convention space was very open area. Part of it was a video game room, part of it was a photo backdrops, but there were big hallways in between. The video game area was put in the back, and there was like a huge ring of space around that.
hmm
You know, and the dealer's hall itself was almost painful in certain regards because they may have more dealers and more artists in that room than any other dealer's hall I've been in. That's a given, but I'm going to San Diego next week, so I'm going to test that theory really quick.
Very true,
But
true, true. Yeah.
but to put in all that, there was still a large amount of empty space off to the right side when you enter the hall.
Mm.
So there was also a bit of mismanagement. And that's also where they put the signatures for guests of honor or industry guests.
Right, right, right.
So you're literally like shoving as much stuff as possible into this one space, which means the only thing left to sacrifice is your walking room.
Right. Um. So was the dealer's hall like? What was you? Or you say it was a walk around freely, or was it like so crowded, like it was like traffic jam, like most of the day?
It was like traffic jam most of the day.
Wow. Wow.
Let me let me lay this out for you. So I'm going to need you to close your eyes, everybody, and picture this with me.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
as soon as soon as you enter one of multiple doors to the front hall, you're greeted by the big name booths. Your Funimation, your Aniplex, your Sentai Works, Bandai Games. They're all up front, okay? But for the first time ever this year, some of these booths have convention exclusive stuff that'll only be sold at this point in time, at least outside of eBay.
Mm-hmm.
So to get those convention exclusives, people were lining up around these booths. So you had a traffic jam with a traffic jam at the front of the dealer's hall.
Oh wow.
Okay, then you go beyond that, and then you get into the regular booths. You know, probably about 12 aisles worth, stretching mostly from the front to about three-quarters of the back.
Hmm.
Then in the rear of the place was Artist Alley.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, off to the far left, dealers go all the way to the wall. Off to the far right, you know, say about 30 yards from the wall is when the dealers suddenly stop, and there's this open space. And then towards that wall are the signature booths for whatever guests are signing anything during that period.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost kind of screwed up because with convention exclusives, of course, you have very completion heavy people who are going to be buying these things who did line up.
Right.
I knew somebody who on day one lined up at Good Smile for convention exclusives. He waited in that line for 4 hours.
Wow.
Then when he got to the booth, he found out he's only allowed to buy up to 2 items at a time, and if he wants more of them, he has to get back in line.
Oh, wow. That's...
Right.
Oh, wow.
So people can spend like 2 days at these booths trying to buy up convention exclusives. So you got a lot of expensive stuff in there. Then you got the dealers in the middle, and of course, their wares can be anywhere from prints and small buttons all the way up to like $400 statues, as I saw somebody buy.
Mm-hmm.
And then towards the back are the artists who generally don't sell their stuff for more than about $20 a print or $40 a plushie.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So it's almost inverted to the grocery store because they have all the expensive stuff up front, whereas the grocery store, you get towards the front, they have the cheap things that are those weird little impulse buys.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, all the weird little impulse buys from artists you might have never heard of are all in the back, and you have all these opportunities to spend money before you get there.
Interesting. Yeah, it's. I remember. Yeah, like they you're usually set up in the back. I find the most interesting things in Artist Alley more than I do find in the dealer's hall or the main buying section of it. It is interesting to hear that they didn't utilize that space between where the autographs are going to be, and then the empty space between that and the whatever dealers were near it.
Right. I mean, they could have set that up in Hall G by itself and just really alleviated a lot of line and crowding problems.
Right. I never thought to the day that the dealers hall at Anime Expo would be so crowded where there was traffic jams, because that hall is so huge. It is like almost 2.5 football fields, or maybe less than that. It's huge.
It is like a couple football fields side by side lengthwise. I do admit that.
Yeah.
And I've seen my fair share of gridiron.
But yeah, wow.
It is troublesome because there is a bit of a feeding frenzy mentality. My daughter and I waited inside the merchandise booth because it was shoulder to shoulder people pretty much from the steps to the dealer's hall to about 2/3 of the way back in the South Hall lobby, which is a fire marshal's nightmare. I'm honestly surprised it hasn't been shut down. But as not long after people were being led up the escalators, there was a sudden bum rush of people that ran up the stairs and knocked down the banners that were supposed to be blocking people from using the stairs.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw the video of everybody just bum rushing to the dealer's hall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even my daughter is 9 years old. She's smart enough to say, "Well, that's stupid."
Yeah. It's insane. It's cool to look at, but it's also very scary at the same time.
I mean, I've been to a lot of dealers halls in my time, and I have learned that there is rarely anything worth impaling someone over. But maybe because people don't have the same experience as I do, they don't understand that if you find something in there, odds are there's at least one other booth that has it, and maybe even for 10% cheaper.
Right. It's funny that you mentioned the convention exclusives, because the only other convention I can think of that has something sort of like that is San Diego Comic-Con, and I think PAX as well. But I've never that's a first for me when it comes to anime convention as a convention exclusive item. I wonder if this might be a trend maybe, or maybe it's a one-time thing.
I do not know because I don't know the results of the sales. I mean, obviously you got to ask the vendors if it's worthwhile, right?
Good point. Who was the vendor?
There were several of them. I mean, I know Aniplex had a special scroll of Sword Art Online I'd never seen before. Good Smile had a number of Nendroids that were convention exclusives, and that was about all I saw under exclusives. But by day 3, most of those were sold out. I didn't even bother having to try to get in the line.
I see. Okay.
It wouldn't even have to be a bunch of items. It could just be one item. I mean, Aniplex was selling their Sword Art Online convention exclusive scroll, which wasn't even a full-size scroll, for $30.
Right. Gotcha. That is very interesting. Wow. So I have a question for you. When you were there, where was the food trucks? Where did they position that? Because I know they were talked about it this year as of like last year and the year before that. Um,
Okay. Yeah, this gets a little complicated. So those of you that were there, close your eyes again because you're going to lay out a map. Those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, get a map. Uh, okay, first of all, when you exit the South Hall, which is the southernmost convention area space,
hmm
you go straight out the front doors. They generally had a few trucks lined up along the Pico side of the corner.
hmm
Usually about 5 of them that you had to choose from, and they rotated those per day. The rest of them, generally, you had to cross both Pico and Figueroa to the opposite corner, which is where most of them congregated.
Hmm.
However, on day 3, while I was walking the back of the Concourse Bridge, which is the one indoor bridge that will connect the halls,
Right, right.
I walked the back end in the loading areas. There were a couple trucks sitting out there as well,
I see.
on the bridge, not down street side. They were on the bridge.
Huh, I see. So they had positioned many food trucks to be around the convention center at all times for people to
Well,
go get some food, right?
Well, like I said, on day 3 was the only day I saw those trucks at the back. So it seems like somebody had the bright idea, maybe we could fit this back here.
Ah, I
Uh,
see. Gotcha, gotcha.
During the rest of the days, I only saw them along Pico and in that opposite corner.
Okay. Okay. Um, I still think that with that decision of putting food trucks right in front of the convention center is probably one of the smartest things that Anime Expo has done. Just because like we all know how expensive food can get in the convention center, like $5 for a freaking hot dog. But like for a food truck, it's like $3 for like two tacos or whatever they sell and
Oh no, dude! It was $3 for a small drink from these things,
oh
man.
really already
These these were not like Roach Coach food trucks. These half of these were like the hoity-toity, follow us on Facebook and find out where we're going to stay type food trucks.
oh really
It's like
oh wow.
one sold what they called a sushi rito, like a piece of sushi the size of a burrito. Okay.
Wow. Wait, was
I
all of them like this, or was there only certain ones?
the Oh no, the large majority of them were like this. Specialty food trucks.
Mm.
I mean, I went to one called Slap Your Mama. It was supposed to be all, I'm not paraphrasing. It was all urban food, and I ordered something called a Crisdo, the Snoop Dogg Crisdo. It was like mac and cheese and chicken tenders put between 2 waffles, fried, and then they put like powdered sugar and syrup over it, and that cost like $9.
Wow. Well, how big was it?
Well, like I said, it was between 2 full-size
Oh,
waffles.
I see. Oh, wow. Still, wow,
But I mean, even then, it didn't come with a drink. I had to pay another $2 to get a bottle of water.
wow. So, oh, okay. Well, that's lame. I mean, like, I was about to
Yeah.
praise Anime Expo, like, but that was smartest decision because when I was there, they did that and it was cheap and it was awesome. But
Yeah, I tell you what, it was after a couple days of looking at this, I was so glad, A, I bought like 11 cases of water before I got to the convention,
uh-huh.
and B, I really started to miss Roach Coaches, with the $1 fried burritos.
Yeah. Wow. That's
That would have been a godsend.
wow. So basically, it was like no matter what, like unless you walked a good distance outside the convention center to say like a Jack in the Box or whatever, like you're paying like a good amount for
Yeah, so unless I wanted to completely leave the grounds, my choices were either sit inside and swelter at the commissary or sit outside and fry with the food trucks.
man, that's that sucks.
And the cost is prohibitive either way. You really have to be hungry before you just sit down and do that, or be affluent.
Right, right. Speaking of heat, how hot was it down there? Because there was prior to Anime Expo happening, I saw many people freaking out that they saw the message from LA, like that weekend of Anime Expo, like there's gonna be like heat warnings, it's gonna be really hot. Uh,
Yeah.
and then it turns out it turned to be like 80, 90, and like up here in meantime it's like in the hundreds. So
It turned out that those 80s and 90s were a misnomer because it may have been the actual degrees. Unfortunately, there was large humidity that weekend.
oh wow, it got humid in LA, really?
Oh, it gets humid in here in periods. It's like right now we're going through this odd period where it's cloudy because we have monsoonal moisture in the high atmosphere.
Oh wow.
So during the weekend, it's like, yeah, the heat wave broke, but unfortunately there was so much moisture in the air, people were still just kind of gamey and sweaty.
Oh wow. Especially, ooh, I couldn't imagine the cosplayers that were like in full armor or that were in full like head to toe outfits.
Yeah, there were some that were definitely paying for it. I took a cosplay pictures of one young lady who was in like head to toe. It looked like vinyl or rubber that was spray painted with gray paint.
Oh wow.
So I felt bad. I actually called the photo shoot with her early because, there was one period where I took her down to the parking structure in LA Live to snap a few pictures, and I had to take her out of there because I was sweating. I could only imagine what she was going through.
Right, definitely.
So, and you want the odd irony? The humidity broke day 4.
Ha ha. Funny.
Not entirely, no.
I know, but like it's just like the way that this happened, it's just like
Yeah. Yeah, it's like hell is over, so therefore we're finally giving you guys a break.
Wow. That's okay. Well, so the entire state of California was suffering in one way or another.
Pretty much. I mean, if it was just a normal day, I don't think anybody would have cared. But unfortunately, after 4 days of walking around, that humidity is really just a butt burner.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm pretty sure the AC inside the convention center was blasting as much as it can, especially with.
Was it?
Wait, don't tell me the AC wasn't on in the convention center.
I have a feeling it was on, but whether or not it was effective was highly dubious.
I see. Because
there were times standing inside the dealer's hall, you can tell everybody had hand fans and was waving it desperately. South Hall was largely packed with people, so it was kind of unimportant. I mean, even West Hall at night, it seemed a little gamey in there.
Wow. Was it also because of the body heat, just because of so many people in one place?
I don't know if it was the body heat or if it because it was taxed, but it definitely didn't feel like an air-conditioned room.
Okay. Interesting. Were you able to catch any panels while you were there at Anime Expo?
Unfortunately, no. Because the guest of honor didn't interest me, I decided to skip most of that. However, I had a friend who was staying in one of my rooms that did manage to try to get out to a few panels. She was very disappointed. This is actually kind of complicated because are you aware of the premium passes?
I have heard of it before. I think they were offering those prior to Anime Expo happening this past year.
Yeah, 2012 was the first year I remember hearing about these. What they basically are is passes that give you a bunch of perks. They're double the price of a regular badge at the door, $150.
Mm-hmm.
And for this, you're supposed to get an hour early entrance into the dealer's hall, priority seating to all panels and main events, plus one complimentary main event ticket, plus, I believe, a signing of your choice, and a couple other things. The way she described it was that even though these people were supposed to get early entrance to the panel so they could get priority seating, they often got seated about the time you would expect people to be let in. And unfortunately, the panels started on time, which meant people were still being filed into the rooms as the panels began. Actually, so she described that as very consistent. She's a very big panel person.
Right.
So things always started on time, but ended early. The premium people were let in late, therefore the regular people were let in later.
Was it they let him in like the entire time the panel was going on, or was it like it got full to a certain point and then like, okay, you can go in now after a certain amount was left? Or
no, you know how panels usually are. They seat everyone just before it's about to start.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, it's because of some kind of weird mistake in management. The premiums were let in just before the panel was supposed to start, just like regular people. It's almost like someone forgot the memo that there are supposed to be people coming in early, then you let in the people just before the panel starts.
I see.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
I overheard on day one somebody in the merchandise booth talking because the dealer's hall on day one was about 20 minutes late. And she stated that there were these premium passes of people that were supposed to be let in an hour early. Problem is apparently since they started this, no one's ever told the dealers.
Oh, the dealers were not informed of this ordeal?
Right. The dealers are expecting to sell stuff at the same time that the place is supposed to open at noon on day one. Unfortunately, no one consistently, it appears, no one tells them that there's someone coming around an hour early, so they're not ready to sell. So what they do in trade is they open the dealer's hall late to give the premium people a chance to buy before the rest of these people are allowed in.
So basically, that whole VIP pass is pretty much was useless, and
it's not useless, but because people are not giving them their early perks, instead what they do is make the rest of us wait later.
Oh.
They're supplementing their perk by making the rest of us wait because someone didn't start things when they were supposed to.
I see. Wow, that's pretty bad. Wow. Okay, so that's interesting. What was the other perks for the pass again? Sorry. It was early lines, but what else was there attached to it?
Let me see. 1 hour early entrance to the dealer's hall. Uh, early no, premium lineups for panels and signings.
Mm-hmm.
Complimentary main event ticket. I believe a complimentary signing of something. It's all a little bit of a mystery to me because most of the things that the premier passes have to do with, I'm not interested in. The
Right.
only thing I might be moderately interested in is the hour early entrance into the dealer's hall to avoid the crowding. But then again, I don't feel like paying $75 for 4 extra hours of time
Yeah, definitely.
when I'm already paying somewhere between 45 and 60 for 4 days.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Interesting. Um, while you were walking around, what was the mood down there in LA for the cosplayers and everybody? Like, despite everything of this happening, was everybody still, having a good time and, or were because of the heat and everything that people were kind of, dreary or kind of like, not as happy as they usually are?
That depends on the role you ask, because of course happiness is so subjective. Um, there was a lot of people who were miserable because of the heat, whether that be because they had to line up in registration, or because the interior of the place was so damn warm. They weren't the happiest individuals.
Hmm.
The cosplay gatherings also suffered from this a bit because, as you can imagine, heat changes your plans.
Oh yes, definitely, definitely.
So there were a few groups that decided to hold their gatherings either in West Hall or South Hall lobbies that were forced to move simply because of crowding issues.
Ah, I see. And
I myself witnessed the fighting Megamix gathering, like all fighting characters that planned to get together in South Hall.
uh-huh,
That was quickly moved to West Hall simply because of the amount of people hanging around in the South Hall lobby. That was again moved outside simply because there was no place in West Hall to stand.
I see. Hmm. So the cosplay gathering is like obviously the heat was a big thing that were changing their schedules and sometimes even forced to still do it even in the heat. Um.
Yes, the Marvel gathering, which was expected to be relatively small, turned out to be large enough that Axe had to move it due to potential fire hazards, as they put it.
Mm-hmm.
Let alone they let people stand shoulder to shoulder in the South Hall to let the dealers hall look like a mob.
I see.
Uh, so it's those odd kinds of stilting of rules. So instead, Marvel was pushed outside, where every cosplayer was trying to fight for what little bits of shade out there in between photos.
I see. Huh. Okay. But the general mood, like, like a general mood, of everybody like during the time was.
The general mood started out as very hopeful early,
Mm-hmm.
but it did feel like it was souring as the weekend went on.
I see. Was this
Um,
persistent with everybody, or is it just by case basis?
it's arguably case by case. You know, I listened to people, some of whom said they had the best time of their lives. I've heard others wonder what in the world was going on and why it didn't feel like things were as much fun as they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
To others who just seemed to be a little miserable due to a combination of staff interactions and just not being able to do what they expected to do.
Hmm. Interesting. Okay.
There was this odd running of the gamut as far as people's overall joy.
Hmm. Interesting. That is the first time I've ever heard. Like I know it's by case basis with all anime conventions, but that's the
Mm.
first time I've heard like an explanation that a good part or some of the people there at Anime Expo were not as having as fun as usual.
Yeah, I talked to some people that have been long-standing like me, and a couple of them are really considering what plans they're going to have next summer. Not based on my opinion, but just after I asked them theirs and what they thought of everything.
Hmm.
And some of them didn't have a good explanation as to why, but they didn't feel like this was necessary anymore.
Really?
Yeah, it's like they had some kind of weird sixth sense about it, and they didn't feel like this was something they wanted to continue.
Interesting. Okay.
And that's before I level my opinion, which everybody knows by now.
Right, right. Um, wow. So when you were passing by each or some of the rooms there at Anime Expo, did it seem like was each room in there was just crowded to the maximum? Or was there like some rooms that were, you can able to walk around, like say the game room or whatever?
The game room during the day was very open. I don't know when the tournaments were being held, but it did seem like there was a serious amount of machines not in use. As a matter of fact, the arcade machines in the back, there were swaths of them that weren't on.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if they were broken because I thought I saw some open panels on some of them, or if they were just plain off due to low usage, but they definitely were not active.
So even some of the arcade was not even in use. That's
Yes.
wow. Okay. Wow.
They got busier at night, but I couldn't say if that was because there were night owls out, or if there was because other things had closed down. They moved on to the few things they could do.
hmm
I don't quite know the reasoning.
Right. Gotcha. Okay.
Although it was kind of a running gag in the video game room that they had all these expensive Alienware machines, and someone passed by all of them playing StarCraft 1.
Awesome.
You have to wonder who planned that out.
Yeah. um. Was there any? I'm trying to. Was when you're passing by the other rooms? Was it like in general? Was the entire convention just like completely filled? Like not only on the floor, but like just in every room that you can think of.
Uh, the upper areas were generally easier to walk than the lowers. I admit that.
I see. Okay.
So it did seem like whatever meetings were going on the upper floors weren't quite gathering the same amount of attention. I know that I saw the maids very actively advertising on day one, so I get the feeling a lot of people either weren't buying tickets or weren't aware where to find them.
Right. Okay.
The lower hallways were easier to walk, but those were the rooms usually reserved for like Lounge 21 and the dances. It may have just been offline during those periods.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, whenever you started approaching either the west or south hall lobbies, you definitely hit a slowdown in traffic. It was just, man, it was especially around lunchtimes when the commissaries were at the maximum of their output. It was even harder to move in the upper areas.
Wow.
And I mean, whereas before I'm used to seeing certain amounts of people sitting around, but not a lot of seriousness as far as, people just trying to find a brief respite.
Right.
I would say from the early to mid afternoons, those free areas in the walls were just lined with people sitting down. So that does lend a little credence to my overall theory that people were just not wanting to traverse the distances to get back to their hotels.
Right. Wow. That's interesting. I cannot talk tonight. As far as what was the word as far as like the live events? Like, what did you hear from people who went to some of like the concert or some of the live events that they paid for to go check out?
I haven't heard much. I know that Porno Graffiti played out at the Club Nokia above LA Live. That apparently was a fairly good show. But it is kind of astonishing now that I think about it. I have not heard a lot of reports about the live events or the other concerts that went on. I don't know if that's indicative of low attendance or other people assuming that word of mouth will get around by some other party. But it's been strangely quiet now that you bring it up.
Interesting.
I do know that there were some complaints from people regarding the Masquerade that apparently the high winners are all American-induced shows like Adventure Time and My Little Pony.
Oh, that ordeal. You know what the funny thing is about that is that I think that's such a it's an issue and not a non-issue. Only reason because okay, so in the rules of Anime Expo, and I would say this also for other anime conventions, specifically like Fanime, it specifically says like you must do a skit that has Japanese or anime related in your skit or in your whatever. I remember that 1 year where I was for one Fanime, my friend and I were going to plan and do a skit for the Masquerade. It was gonna be from Dead Space 2, just kind of reenactment of a scene. I asked them like, can we do this? And it's like, no, you can't. It's like, cause it's not, related. It's like, okay, well, I can understand. I go there to the Masquerade, front row, Gus Press, and I'm watching, and the very first skit they did, and it was cool, but it was like, in my mind thinking, really, Fanime? Was the Portal 2 skit that these guys did in the very first show thing that they started off with Anime. And it's like, yeah, so Portal 2 is Japanese related, huh? I mean, just saying. I mean,
Yeah, well,
the only link I can think of is like, the main character is Asian, but that's about it.
that may be indicative of the changing nature of the fan base, but at the same time, there is something to be argued about the world's largest anime convention that seems to be losing its grip on anime.
Mm,
They tried to bolster that this year with a foray into Korean popping culture, which arguably is not anime.
right.
So, I mean, it could be that they found out that they can't beat a one-trick pony to increase their attendance, or it could be that the fan base is dwindling, so they're trying to branch out into all this other stuff.
It makes sense on both ends because like, you can only depend on your audience for so long, that your core audience, you may have to expand outside of that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like there isn't a rule or unspoken law that you can't cosplay as a Marvel character at an anime convention because that happens all the time. So I think that it's just oh, excuse me. I think
It's okay. I'm always this interesting.
no, I just had a burp for a minute.
Okay.
um, it's just that I think that in some cases it's okay to go outside, but I don't know. I feel like it should be okay, but like at the same time, I definitely get what people were getting at and why should this team win just because they cosplay from My Little Pony, So
Yeah, well, it could also be the bias of the judges, unfortunately.
right, that's true too. That's very true. Um, Speaking of Masquerade, so just out of curiosity, was it still $20 to get in for the Masquerade?
I heard it was supposed to be 5. Either way, I still feel weird about paying for an
Oh,
event
they lowered the prices. Okay, good.
yeah. I still feel odd about paying for an event that's all basically fan
I
participation.
know, right? Like,
You know,
the crazy thing about Anime Expo, and for people who don't know or who haven't been, is that they will charge for some events that are normally free at anime conventions, namely Masquerade, the Rave, AMV contest, stuff that you would normally go for free. Um, but when I was there, it was like $20 to go watch it. And I was like, wow, really? Uh,
yeah,
was it so? It was only $5 to get in for this year.
that was my understanding, but I just refuse to go near it. I can't spend money for something where the fan base is working for free to try and create money for another organization.
That's true. That is very true. Now that I think about
You
it.
know, it's not something where I'm dissuading other people from going. I cannot get over this disconnect in my head that we're already paying, again, anywhere between 45 and $75 to get in for a weekend. So I would think that these costs would be largely covered.
Even Comic Con doesn't do this. And they're like,
Not as far as I know, and I get to go face to face with them in a week and a half.
yeah. Interesting. As far as I'm trying to think. Walker.
I know I've thrown a lot of curveballs today.
Oh, no. It's just like I'm trying to think what else possibly. Uh, I want to ask about Anime Expo. As far as just the. I was gonna say the people already talked about that. I mean, in general, I'm assuming everybody was pretty friendly, and cool, right?
Mostly, there's always some bad apples in the bunch that don't understand that it's not worth running over someone smaller to get to an object or a device or whatever it is.
Right.
There was a couple of mouth breathers who nearly ran afoul of my own kids and ended up with me staring at them until they moved along themselves.
Nice. Okay. How was the staff? Like, how was the staff there at Anime Expo?
I did not encounter any rude ones myself, but I had very limited needs for staff this year.
Mm-hmm.
I also get the feeling that a lot of them know who I am, so they purposefully either go out of my way or avoid me to certain degrees.
I see. Gotcha.
However, it can be reported that by day 3, I was going through the internet just trying to see what I could find out about any schedule changes, and on Axis Facebook page was a notification that they want to be informed about any incidents with rude staff as soon as it occurs.
I saw that too. Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of a curious thing. What was even more curious was that I saw this the morning of day 3. By that morning, that post already had 100 replies in it.
Mm-hmm. I am not surprised.
You know, So there was several accounts in there of different things happening. Rude staff yelling, rude staff making bad eye contact or making lewd comments. One even stated that a staffer called him a freak, and he was a cosplayer.
Mm, interesting.
So now let's put all this into the proper light. Some of what they consider staff may have been convention center staff. There were lots of people running around in red shirts with the initials EES on them, and they seem to be contracted directly to the convention center.
Right, right.
But either way, no matter who it was, to me, it does fall on the convention itself to inform the staff of the convention center that these types of people are coming, be prepared.
Right, definitely.
And it does not appear that they were well prepared.
Huh. I was surprised about that too. I also heard that they on day 3 they let people who just wants to go to the dealers hall and just buy a pass for that. That I believe that happened again this year. I remember they did it last year.
It did. I saw a couple dealers hall only passes, but I wasn't looking that seriously. I just kind of tripped across them. So it was possible to only get into the dealers hall, which may account for some of this unusual explosion of 9,000 individuals.
Oh, that would
people
make
who showed up
sense.
to buy a couple things and left.
Right, right, right. Interesting.
So it's one of those things where it's hard to tell if the explosion in population is a good thing or if they're just opportunists.
Good point. Yeah. Wow. I mean, like, because like when I read in your report, like 9,000 plus, it's like wow. Like at some point, like we know that Anime Expo, we know most of these big anime conventions are growing every year. I'm starting to think, is it now getting to the point where like either the Anime Expo is getting too big for the LA Convention Center, and that's a big statement to even say that, to where they need to move somewhere even bigger than that, or are we at the point where we have to just bypass that and like now have a ticket system and only allow a certain number in, how PAX is run up in Seattle and in Boston and in Australia?
That's a hard call. It could be a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. Part of the issue with Anime Expos, as we discussed, they don't seem to understand how to use the space they have allocated very well.
Mm-hmm.
So some of it could simply be layout issues. The other part of it could indeed be that you need to find a way to stop people from ghosting. For those that don't know, ghosting is when someone simply stays at the hotel and hangs out at the convention center to cosplay and be with other people, but not exactly take part in the convention proper.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of people will deride me for saying that because there are a lot of ghosters in the convention circuit, especially in California.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But at the same time, if these people are hanging around and they can't get into the convention center, that does mean they're taking up available hotel rooms. They're taking up available parking. They make the lines longer at the food stations.
Interesting.
So it could be that you that have struggled so long to save all year to pay for your hotel and your badge are being not pushed out, but effectively squeezed by someone else who did not.
That would make sense. And if the ghosters were pretty much taken out of the equation, there'll be room for people to kind of go around and whatnot, and probably would have been as crowded this year as in previous years.
Right, and some people will argue that this year ghosters were not possible because there were bag checks at the front doors at a lot of the convention center.
That's true too. I remember. Yeah, definitely.
However, those guys never check my badge. They only check my bag.
Interesting, huh? I mean, I would imagine so, just because like so many people coming in at once, or some throughout the entire day, that like some of them will probably miss, that they have a badge or not, or even say that one person is like he has a badge of a girl's name and he's a guy, and they didn't bother to look like, oh, you're legit,
right? Oh yeah. I would definitely argue that those guys were not interested in your badges. They were only doing precursory checks of bags, and they weren't even interested in that, really.
Interesting.
Speaking of badges, for 2 years in a row, Anime Expo has produced the cheapest badge I've ever seen in my years of conventions.
Really? Is it because was it that bad this year?
It was last year. It was light cardstock in a plastic badge holder with holographic paper. Okay, or a holographic strip on it.
Ah, I see.
This year there was no holographic strip.
Wow, they got even cheaper.
Yeah, and they didn't. Let me put it this way: I got my badge, which was the piece of paper perforated. At least it was pre-perforated.
Mm-hmm.
Then they gave me the badge holder, and then they gave me the lanyard. So in other words, put it together.
Oh yeah.
So I had to rip it myself, fold it myself, put it in myself, and then walk over and get my swag bag. which swag bag apparently means plastic bag with guidebook in it.
Oh, was that it? There was nothing else in it?
Dude, even the lanyard had Crunchyroll written all over it. So, and
Wow.
at the end of the lanyard was this clip that had another plastic card on it, which was more expensive looking than my badge as an advertisement. It had a glyph I could scan.
Mm-hmm.
I tried putting my badge on the end. I eventually did it, but then it occurred to me there's a clasp at the end of the lanyard, but my badge has one of those cheap metal like alligator clips. The two are incompatible. They were not made to go together. So somebody, probably Crunchyroll, paid for the lanyard in this ad. Then Axe paid for the little bit of plastic at the end, and some of us just happened to put it together.
Wow, that's that's funny. Speaking of registration, how was the registration for this year?
Um, it's both good and bad,
Mm.
and I know I'm overusing that phrase. It does move fairly well when it gets moving.
Right, I heard from a friend that he was able to get his badge within 5 minutes of that what he was in line for.
That's possible, but he had to have gone on a different day. I went on day 0.
Oh.
And I went early because there's not that many places to stay out of the sun. I
Mhm.
managed to get one of the last ones out there that kept me out of the sunlight.
Right.
I ended up waiting for about 3 hours before it started. It took about another 2 to 2.5 hours for me to get in the door, because what they do is they basically have you standing under this awning that runs the length of like the south end of South Hall, which is about 150 yards.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just outside the side entrances, all the way down the parking side.
Mm.
And they have you shuffle up and down this 150 yards several times before you get in the building. So basically you're doing this impersonation of the guards from The Wizard of Oz or like a food line from a prison movie.
Mm-hmm. Right, right.
And you're doing this several times. There's several times you approach the building, I'm almost there, I'm almost there, I'm almost there. What do you mean turn around?
Oh, well.
So,
I mean, it's not as bad as what happened at Fanime, right? I mean, it wasn't that to that level, right?
probably not. I didn't get the late line waiting, so I couldn't say for sure.
Gotcha.
But it did occur to me as I was sitting there going, for the third time down, why, and someone can implement this if they want, I don't give a crap. Why, instead of making us stand up and shuffle and just kind of tire everyone out and make everybody miserable, why didn't they have like one column of people stand up, take them inside? Then after they were done, have the next column of people stand up, take them inside. And as you're taking these people out from under the awning, move some of the people that have been in the sun under the awning.
Right, because you gotta think like some of them are in cosplay that are pretty are really warm as it is and in full on, and B, these are in all intents and purposes these are customers, and they are sitting in the sun, and they need to be put in a much cooler area. I mean, I know in some cases where that's unavoidable. But if there is an opportunity where that can happen, it should be utilized. I'm just saying. I'm not, I'm not the head of any convention. I'm just saying from my experience.
Yeah, well, I'm second in the department of volunteers in Anime Los Angeles, so I do have to make these considerations.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
But at the same time, you have a summer convention where half of your Day Zero crowd is waiting out in the sun, and you could have shown a hell of a great gesture of goodwill just by putting like one of those cheap $90 portable tents that you see on the beaches like every 100 feet.
Right, good point. Or have some sort of like, say,
water station.
Yeah, water station, or people giving out water or whatnot. That'd be really cool. But wow, that does really suck for those people. When you were you kind of there on the other days that you were there? Were you able to kind of see what the registration line looked like then than it was on day 0?
No, the registration line is very well placed out of the way, so unless you purposefully head out that side of the building, you won't see them.
I see.
It's almost like those people are being treated as a dirty secret during the convention.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. Interesting. I think as far as I can think of, like, out of the entire convention, like your experience, and from what I'm hearing was not the best, but still, did you have fun? Like, was there a moment where like you were you had the most fun at?
Yeah, night 3. Most of the convention had shut down, and I just decided to take a walk around because I'm working for you guys, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And it occurred to me that I didn't know if Rin was going to make it to any of the dances or any of the late night activities. So I decided to just kind of pal around and see what I could see.
Right.
I couldn't get into the dance because I didn't have a press badge and they wanted me to wait in line, which was already stupidly long.
Right. Right.
So I just took a few pictures through the door and kept walking. But there is something about catching cosplayers and people hanging out outside of the groups that made them feel like they were more free. They weren't constrained by the groups, by the rules, by people wanting particular pictures. It's like the actual cosplayers had finally come out to play themselves. So I got a lot of these interesting candid shots in these quick pictures of people who I didn't feel like I'd seen them most of the weekend.
Right, definitely. Awesome. It was as if, what's the word I'm looking for? Like the entire weight of a convention was lifted off their shoulders.
Yeah, instead of trying to perform as part of a group or trying to stay in the normal ideas of cosplay behavior, they were finally able to let their inner child run free for a few minutes.
That's cool. Okay.
So I got some interesting pictures. I think I irritated a couple of Attack from Titan cosplayers when I spotted some more and said, do you want to jump in? Because one of them looked like he was cooling his jets and he just couldn't understand why I wanted a photo right now.
Right, gotcha.
But at the same time, it's like I wasn't just taking pictures. These people were chatty.
Right. Okay.
They actually talked about all kinds of things. It's like I spotted a couple Naruto cosplayers walking through, one dressed as, both of them dressed as the Genin version of Sakura and Hinata, both young girls. And I said, do you mind stopping for a photo? And they said, fine. As they were putting down their stuff, I moved around so I could see them from the angle of the least people walking behind them. And one of them suddenly says, should we go over in that corner where there's so you get a decent background? I said, well, sure. During the day, it's kind of creepy to be the old guy going, hey, girls, want to follow the corner?
Right.
And they just said it, and they said it's cool. It's not like anything's going to happen around here. So obviously there's some things at night that people will consider that they won't consider during the day.
Right, definitely. Because like the hustle and bustle of walking around and taking pictures and whatnot, it's more of a miss during the day than it is during the night.
Right.
But that's glad. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it's okay. I was just going to say it's like this one Mario cosplayer I saw. I must have seen a ton of Mario cosplayers, but this one, for some reason, had a speaker that was playing Size Gentleman. And he suddenly just kind of like bopped himself up to a girl and started dancing. She laughed, but she started dancing back.
That's cool. Yeah, definitely. Whenever it comes to nighttime, it's always like a good time, especially at conventions, just to hang out. Like you can go up to any random cosplayer, because like we've all been through that entire long day and just, let loose, just kind of relax, talk, to whomever you can find. It's always those cool moments that happen are really, really fun.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that. I was going to ask you something, but it just slipped through my mind.
You're going to ask me about the guy that was apparently escorted out?
Oh, that too. But actually, I was going to ask prior to that, out of the cosplays you saw, which one in particular that really stood out to you? That was just like, holy crap, let me take your picture now.
Oh, wait, you're going to ask me to play favorites? That's not fair, man.
I'm not to say, we have a favorite, but, just saying,
There was a couple that actually caught my eye like almost immediately. There was someone dressed up with a Hatsune Miku wig. She was in a black ballerina outfit. But she was actually doing toe stands in the middle of South Hall.
Oh, that's so cool. Wow.
So she actually did ballet. And it was kind of funny because I ran into her day one. I ran into her again, I think, on day 4. And I could see her just kind of fanning a couple Power Rangers. And at one point, the Black Ranger tries to get up on his toes and imitate her. It was just awesome to see.
That is awesome.
There was also somebody dressed up as Meru from Legend of Dragoon, which is... There always seems to be one from Legend of Dragoon running around every year.
Nice.
And I don't know how that works out. I saw somebody as Super Sonico in lingerie poolside on night 3.
Wow.
I don't quite know what she was doing there, but I'm not going to argue.
I don't blame you.
But the one that probably just kind of, got my brain juices flowing was I ran across somebody who played the firebending brother on Legend of Korra from Avatar.
Oh, cool.
And she was standing there, and I just said, do you mind if I take a picture? She said, sure. And she suddenly backed up from me like 8 feet. And, this kind of got me curious. So as soon as I looked through my lens, she had grabbed a a small chain that had a weight on it, and connected to the weight was this long orange piece of fabric.
Oh.
So as I stood there, she started swinging it in all directions in this rhythmic gymnastic style, and was creating this, this trail of like simulated fire behind her. And I thought, that's awesome.
Wow, that's
You know?
really cool.
So I must have taken like 30 pictures just letting the sports setting on my camera go crazy.
Wow, that's so awesome.
And, I stopped taking pictures because other people were. I turn around and I just, I wander off. 5 minutes later, I come back. There she is standing with Cora and a Bolin.
No, not wow.
So I snapped their pictures real quick, and I said, that's great. And then I looked behind them, and I noticed the blue fabric, and I noticed the Earth disc, and I said, wait, do you guys do this too? He said, oh, yeah. They back up 8 feet. So all of a sudden, I have this other, like, dozen pictures. Well, actually, those are the ones I posted. I probably have, like, another 30 pictures of these guys swinging these things in all directions.
Right, gotcha. That is so cool. I love the creativity that these people do sometimes with their cosplays.
Yeah.
From the outside looking in, like the majority of costumes that were, at least what I saw, that were like kind of like the main, I guess, focus group. These guys, if I'm Final Fantasy 12, I think it was, like these guys in like just full body armor, shiny.
Oh, the Maesters.
Yeah, like those were guys who were getting the most attention from what I saw, from some of the videos. Those was really cool.
Yeah, it looked like they actually constructed a plate mail, and they, I know someone who was in that group, and she started walking from the JW the same time these guys did. They ended up showing up to the group about 10 minutes later than she did because they kept getting stopped on the way for photos.
I can imagine.
So that made them show up to the Final Fantasy gathering fashionably late, which of course garnered them even more attention when everyone realized there's these things stomping towards you in the distance.
Yeah, wow. Those are really cool. Those were the most awesome things I saw. The League of Legends cosplayers were just phenomenal. My favorite was Vi, and her hands were actually moving in her fingers too, and top of the dial actually working. And there was a lot of good cosplays I did see this year, at least from the outside looking in.
Actually, can I tell you a quick story?
Yes, go ahead.
On day 4, I spotted a couple Naruto cosplayers as I was walking through the hall. I was getting ready to just call it done at about somewhere around 1 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I was on my way to the Ava gathering at 1 o'clock, and I spotted these cosplayers, and I just said, do you mind if I take a picture? And the girl turns around and says, hey, this guy wants a photo, to this other girl she's walking with.
Mm-hmm.
And so I back off the hallway, and suddenly I realized, like ninjas, all of a sudden 8 of them appeared out of nowhere and started gathering together. So as soon as I started taking pictures, they look off in one direction and say, come here. And suddenly there's like another 5 that came out of the crowd. So this whole thing is starting to get a little out of control.
Wow.
And I realize I'm one of those people I hate because unfortunately in the concourse bend, I've accidentally created this group that is blocking a large majority of the hall.
Wow.
And, as soon as I was done taking my pictures, I turn around and I nearly stand in the middle of like 8 other photographers who had somehow appeared over my shoulder. Somebody else came by and said that she wanted to get pictures of them outside, and they said, okay. And one of them was a Sasuke that had this external rig of like PVC pipe and foam supposed to resemble like a rib cage and spine.
Oh, right.
Right, something to do with later powers. On the way out of the concourse hall, the bottom parts of this thing starts falling out of the back.
Oh, shit.
So after a quick fix, we think we got it back together, but unfortunately it cracks in another section. So he basically has a secret security contingent of both fans and cosplayers walking him through the West Hall into the cosplay repair station, where one of the cosplayers, this young girl named Cherry, she had worked so hard on this thing and she did not want to see it fail. She wanted to do this group.
That's cool.
Somebody offered a wooden sword, so what she did was she took insulation tape from the repair station, wound it around the sword, put it at the back of the spine, wound it completely around to the point where it hit it, taped up the bottom end, put it back on the guy, and then we got him outside. It was like this weird 45-minute ordeal that took like 6 people to work on.
Wow.
And this was all on day 4.
But that's still, wow. Day 4? Jesus.
Yeah, so we ended up finally taking a large group picture somewhere around 2 when everything settled down. And then finally I told the photographer, we got to let these people go because some of them want to shop and there's like an hour's left in the dealer's hall.
Yeah, definitely. Wow, that is so. I love the dedication that whoever was it Sherry or Cheryl?
She identified herself as Cherry. If you look at the pictures I put up towards the end, there's a girl in a dark shirt, Asian girl, short brown hair with a couple.
Okay, I got you. I know she is. She's a friend of mine. Oh wow, so that's pretty awesome. Okay.
Yeah, she called herself Cherry. She was really driven and wanted to see this thing work. She was definitely one of the standout cosplayers there simply because she would not give up on this thing, even though the convention was technically pretty much over.
I will send the regards to her. That is really cool. I didn't know that she was part of the cosplay repair station. Uh,
No, she wasn't part of the repair station.
oh,
She literally was. She was one of the cosplayers.
oh, I
But
see.
she was responsible for building this rig apparently for her friend, and she wanted to see it back
Oh,
together.
I see. Gotcha. Okay, cool. Okay, that's still pretty awesome. That's still pretty cool to hear.
It was one of those things where I was so glad I skipped the Ava gathering because this was so much more interesting. It was a human story unfolding right in front of me, and it was just great.
Yes. Um, so before we get to the other stuff, overall, what was your experience at AX, and like, was there anything to take away from it? Just in your own point of view.
Well, staff has always been kind of a sore point for this convention. Well, not always, at least for the last few years.
Right.
I don't know what's going on because it does seem like the staff and the volunteers are some of the most underinformed people in the California circuit. I mean, even Fanime, with its large turnover this year, had its issues, but at least you could find somebody who could help you with your way.
Right.
There was one person who was proud of the idea that staff took control of one group of people who were standing around by telling them to fucking move.
Mm,
And I work conventions, and as both a consumer and a guy who works at a convention, that should be the absolute last thing you attempt with absolutely belligerent people, not a bunch of people standing around to have a conversation.
right. Wow.
So I think that staff really needs to get its head out of its collective rear ends and either figure out what to do to make things better for everybody or stand out of the way and let somebody else who has an ounce of professionalism stand in that role.
Mm,
Food was a continued sore spot because all the food trucks, I wouldn't feel so bad paying $10 if I at least knew where I was getting the food from. But with all these food trucks, I have no idea who's serving me what.
right. Gotcha.
If you guys got like an In-N-Out truck and a Habit truck and a few other things, that would be totally cool. But nobody ever seems to fish for those.
Right.
Um, and the dealers hall is still one of the best dealers halls out there, but they've got to figure out something to do about this overcrowding.
Yeah. That is.
I don't know if that means limiting the dealers so that only 4 people can sell me corsets through the year. Or, actually trying to figure out what the best ways to create walking lanes are so some of us feel more comfortable to buy.
hmm
And I know some people are listening that's just going, stop whining, I bought stuff anyway. Yeah, I bought stuff, but I probably could have bought more if I felt more comfortable about approaching places without being run over.
Right. Overall, the question of the day is, did you have fun?
I had fun, but most of that fun didn't come at the hands of the convention center. It was because of the people I surrounded myself with.
I see. Okay. All right. That's all I wanted to hear. Cool. Okay. So now that we got that all taken care of,
The aftermath.
the aftermath, the colossal kind of the dirty underside that people may not know. Spoilers. Not all anime conventions are as good as they may seem.
Yeah.
So anyways, I remember you saying earlier about, somebody got arrested. What was that about? Like what happened?
Well, it wasn't arrested. Apparently, the head of the cosplay division was escorted through the lobby either on day 3 or day 4. I don't know because I didn't witness it myself.
Mm-hmm.
And he was forcibly removed,
Mm.
which is kind of questionable in itself because when someone brought up issues with Allison McKnight, including myself, and asked Mark Perez, who presented himself in cosplay.com as to what was going on, he said he wouldn't comment due to ongoing personnel actions. Yet, even though this person was former personnel, he does feel very comfortable with commenting on him right away,
Interesting.
which is a very strange dichotomy.
Yeah. Kind of, and it's in a way, it's like, we're not going to comment on the situation, but this guy, oh yeah, I could talk over.
Right, we're not going to comment on something that bothers you. This bothered me, so I'm going to talk about it a little.
hmm
And this apparently brought this individual out to cosplay.com who posted his own rebuttal, which I swear to you looks to be about 12 pages of typing.
hmm
And this all started today, which tells me he must have worked most of the day on this. And he has notes that are going to be hard to refute because they are very meticulous, very detailed.
hmm
And they do pretty much counter what Mark Perez said in a few short paragraphs. This guy responded by a ledger, basically.
Right, definitely. And to point out, this guy headed the cosplay department of Anime Expo, which includes the Masquerade.
Right, he was apparently up until day 4.
Oh yeah, but like, what was the other duties? Like he was in the head of Masquerade. What else did he do for the con? Was he in charge of the cosplay repair station or?
See, that's the hard part that I'm having trouble trying to pull out here, because over the course of this man's accountings from November, or actually October of last year, where he was invited to take over the division, all the way up to apparently just before the convention, his duties and possible powers kept changing.
Interesting.
Even though he's head of cosplay, Masquerade definitely seemed to fall under his purview. However, his budget was only allocated to him by management higher up, namely Allison McKnight and apparently Mark Perez, at least according to the way he lays it out. A lot of the monies were allocated to different items, including the cosplay backdrops, which apparently took most of his $15,000 budget before he saw it.
Right, gotcha. Okay. Um, so
there were, well, I'm sorry, to elaborate a little more, he kept trying to nominate judges for the Masquerade in several competitions, and he apparently was routinely overrided by someone above him. Either Sarah is a manager he identifies a lot, or Allison McKnight, or Mark Perez himself.
Right. Now, when the day when he was actually escorted out of the building, are there people outside of like the people that are in the know? Like, did anybody really notice? Like, was it like when he escorted out? Like, did he like went out? What's the word I'm looking for? Rambo style, or like did he, or was like a very calm and quiet type of exit?
It's kind of hard to say. Apparently, they called him to the back, and he awaited orders back there, and they took him back to the cosplay office, at least according to what he says.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, Allison McKnight became pretty rude and verbally aggressive, and he began to sort what was his out of the things in the cosplay office, and he left, and they probably sent security with him.
I see. Huh. As far as like the context of that argument or exactly what was said, is that still did he lay that out in his piece on cosplay.com, or
he didn't let he laid out some specifics prior to the convention, and the few phrases he's laid out are usually by Allison McKnight, which are usually belligerent and belittling.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the actual verbal altercation backstage on day 4, he didn't get into specifics. I don't know if that's because he's holding back in case somebody tries to attack him via internet, which some management at Axe has been implied as doing,
Mm-hmm.
or if he plans on raising some kind of suit later, because the way he lays it out, it makes it sound like by about April his budget was blown and he was paying for some items out of pocket, so he may be looking for reimbursement later.
I see. So this was all building up into this point.
Right.
It wasn't just this one incident happened and he was just like cut from the Anime Expo staff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what happened at the Masquerade? Because there were something happened as far as like with the prize that were like mishandled, or what exactly happened that was under his control there?
Well, this is turning into a he said type argument. Mark Perez claims that the pricing was somehow under this individual's identified on cosplay as Afklarung,
Mm-hmm.
under his purview. Although in his notes, he does make it pretty clear that Allison McKnight herself took over the idea of getting the prizes, which apparently is a very slow process.
Mm-hmm.
And he kept asking, I guess, specifically what these prizes were and what was going to be handed out, and he received very few answers over the course of the year.
I see.
So it may have been one of those things where they finally dumped what was left on him, and he was left to figure out what to do with it and what else he could get.
What were the prizes for this year's Masquerade? I know the main one was like I think around $5,000 for best of show, and then second and third got a good amount of something else. Do you know by any chance like what were the prizes for this year was?
I do not know. I do know this. I don't know specifically. I do know that this person had pictures of what his department was able to apparently put together as far as prizes. And there are several rows of chairs of different items, from manga books to daikamuras to plushies. A very big variance of stuff is the way he's laid it out.
Hmm.
The picture he apparently of stuff he received from Allison McKnight was a $20 Cosmo book, some other book underneath, an axe bag, and a what looks like a hairpin in the shape of a dark bow.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And it does have a post-it on it that says "Best Group Craftsmanship Masquerade."
Wow. Huh. Funny. Um, were there? Because like I'm trying to think like as far as like the people who won them, like if they complained or if if there were anything into that nature. It's like hey, you got third place. Here's a book and a hairpin.
I don't know because again I stayed away from it since it was a pay for play type of event that I don't agree with.
Right, right.
I haven't heard anything about anyone being necessarily unhappy with the prizes, so I'm guessing that whatever happened was sorted in the end. But there was a lot of talk about some kind of weird drama running about prizes that wasn't very well explained during the convention.
I see. As far prize as far as like for the masquerade, like behind the scenes, or was it something openly that they actually talked about?
It was something. It was one of those things where a lot of people were getting whispers about something going on behind the scenes that wasn't quite jiving. It did seem like that after past years, Anime Expo may have set its own bar too high because you remember in one year there was $10,000 laid out for Masquerade.
Right, I do.
During the year that AM2 came out.
I remember that year. Yes.
So they may have unintentionally set their own bar way too high.
I see.
And now that they may be having budget issues, they're trying to lower that bar, and a lot of people are going, hey, you're supposedly growing. Where's that money?
Oh, I see. Okay, I gotcha. So basically, because of that 10 grand that they put out for one anime convention year, the standards of like hey, you're giving us some crap ass prizes for like a year or two after you just did this. So okay,
right.
I
right.
gotcha.
I mean, if you got people who are coming from countries away by word of mouth based on what they heard a while ago, they may be arriving and going, that's a real nice signed chair. Where's the cash?
Right, definitely. And it's totally a valid, argument. I mean, if I heard that Fanime was giving away 10 grand or 5 grand for first, best of show, then like, yes, I would be mad too. I would be, I would be going there, from as far as the country as I can be, and compete where I can get that money, because that's a little crap of money.
Right. So this is starting to turn into a real big behind the scenes issue, at least as far as Anime Expo is concerned, because just before the convention started, somebody else posted on 4chan a thread where they were claiming that Allison McKnight, Taylor, I believe his name is Taylor Locke, and Mark Perez, possibly even, were doing unwanted sexual advances on other staffers.
Oh.
And because they're in such high positions, it's kind of hard to get any one of them removed.
Right. Gotcha.
So it's one of those things where one allegation or another may not have a lot on its face, but these things are starting to come out in more frequency and more detailed. I think someone has to seriously question what's going on behind the scenes at the SBJA.
Definitely. And the thing is though about this is that as I'm not a lawyer, but as they say, when there's smoke, there's fire.
Right.
And the thing is though is that we've we've known that Anime Expo had some staff issues prior to this even happening. I do remember the day when they switched completely different staff and let go of the current staff they had when they assigned SP. What was it? SPJ. What was the letters again for the
SPJA?
Yeah. When it was publicly was announced, I remember reading that story on Anime News Network talking about it. And then following, the whole CEO or Anime Expo spending money trying to get a ban in Japan, and that didn't go too well.
Right. Well, this apparently is much deeper because this Afkalung guy, and forgive me if I'm butchering that.
Right.
He did mention that the past few heads of the cosplay department had all pretty much had short tenures. So there is a certain idea that this division head position may be the kiss of death when it comes to working there.
I see. So oh wow.
Well, let me put it to you this way. Cosplay may not be something that the current management of Axe understands very well. Part of what this guy's notes laid out was that Allison McKnight was trying to get the cosplay department to take active control of the cosplay gatherings. And this guy tried, the way he puts it, to explain to her repeatedly, Axe has nothing to do with the gatherings. They're fan events.
Mm-hmm.
But she kept pushing on him, trying to get him to take control of something he couldn't control.
Yeah, like there's no way you can control a fan gathering. I mean, you can have an organized gathering, I guess, like
right.
the convention can hold, but you cannot.
But her comments were to try to get him to have all the gatherings at the photo backdrops.
Oh, I see.
In other words, she's trying to get him to dictate to fans how to run their fandom.
Right, definitely. Wow, that's
assuming these comments are true.
Right. I mean, we have to. We should point out to everybody, but like these are all things that were stated by this former staffer of Anime Expo, and you can read the entire thing. We'll have it in the show notes on the link to the article.
It's on cosplay.com in the Anime Expo forum under the title Axe 13 Cosplay - Operational Timeline.
Right.
Parentheses Our Dirty Secrets.
And we must point out that even though it is out there and laid out for everybody to see, everything is still unconfirmed, and until
until any of his staffers speak up and corroborate.
Right.
But
still,
I will say this does corroborate my opinion of Allison McKnight based on her own Facebook. Not too long after the announcement of which fan panels were selected for Anime Expo, there were a lot of people who were upset because there were a lot of panels that were rejected. Her response on her personal Facebook, and part of this has been a screen capture that's on the Rolling 20s podcast. Her response was that she only had 10 fan panel slots total for the weekend. And her response was, "I didn't rape your baby, CTFD, a.k.a." Yes.
What? Yo, seriously?
I'm dead serious. It is on the podcast. Go back and look through the Rolling 20 podcast, and it is in there.
Oh, my God.
One person, of course, in the internet, you always find people who share your opinions. So one person said maybe if you did, they would calm down. Her response is, "Yeah, right. I should have a panel on how to accept when I reject your panel."
Wow. That's... Wow.
And as a father of three, considering the baby rape comment, I think Allison McKnight should bend over in front of me so I can give her 3 swift kicks in the ass on behalf of my kids.
Wow. That's okay. Because here's the thing. It's funny. It's like I've heard this sort of talk from other convention staff sometimes where they would get too big for their britches and say because they believe they have all the power, and to some degree they do. But at the same time, you're dealing with like a bunch of people who are going to a convention. That's not quite the things you want to say to have them like come back for next year. It's like, oh, I'll say this stuff like, oh, come back next year,
Right. And in this guy's, in Off-Coloring's early post, apparently after his first Skype meeting with Allison McKnight, one of the quotes he put up is this guy autistic or something?
Wow.
So in other words, she has a history of doing insensitive and damn near idiotic comments according to the way it's laid out. And unfortunately, her own Facebook does corroborate that she does not know when to control her mouth.
Wow. So there are a ton of issues happening behind the scenes for Anime Expo staff.
Right. At one point, he moved the cosplay inventory to his residence to work through them to fuel pre-con masqueration operations and filing. McKnight is quoted as saying, "What's he going to do with that stuff? Sell it off?"
Right. Definitely. Wow. That is interesting. The thing is, though, is it gets me thinking is that, how long do you think it will take for to be any stable ability within the convention staff at Anime Expo? Because because Anime Expo, for better or for worse, it is the biggest attended convention, anime convention in the United States, bar none.
Well, currently.
Yes, exactly. And then at the rate at what most big anime conventions are going, they are growing bigger and bigger every year. If the staff, if there are still issues and leadership problems behind the scenes with the staff, how can the future of Anime Expo be? I guess how can they be somebody going that how could it be safe, or how could it be safe knowing that that everything's going to be okay, and that the staff is um going to be working behind the scenes to make sure that everyone is having fun and there's no problems. Uh,
Well, ignoring the allegations for a little bit, because you need to really exclude that as part of the formula.
right. That's true.
Excluding the allegations, considering the massive amounts of staff turnover there
Hmm.
since 2009, it does seem like a lot of the veterans have left either for greener pastures or just because they're tired of dealing with something behind the scenes.
Right.
So that tells me that management is either dysfunctional or possibly inept.
Right. And
And
or go ahead. Sorry.
right. And when you lose that many veteran staffers, they're either going to not work again in conventions, or they're going to find other conventions to work on. Word I get is that a lot of the disgruntled Anime Expo staffers and some Otakon staffers are now working for Japan Expo USA.
Right. Yeah.
And the Otakon staffers are being shared, not thrown out.
Right. I.
That's going to be a major problem, and I'm sorry to keep interrupting
Oh
you.
no, it's cool. It's cool.
But I mean, cosplay is the cosplay department at a convention right now, considering the cosplay community, is pretty well vital. If you don't understand these people, you're going to alienate the people who make your conventions more colorful just because of their own involvement.
Right.
If these people find other places to go, Anime Expo may find itself shrinking rapidly, and some people will argue, well, they're still going to buy stuff here. Yeah, there's still going to be people to buy stuff. But how many people go to show off the best in cosplay?
That's true.
How many people go to hang out with their cosplaying friends? How many of these fans that buy tickets every year are the photographers looking for the best in cosplay?
That's true, because you have to take into account that you are dealing with a vast amount of customers, a vast amount of people who are coming to your convention to have fun. And don't get me wrong, well, these issues are happening in the background. It's still, people are still gonna have fun at Anime Expo regardless, and it is, again, a case by case basis. Like, not everybody who knows is behind it is gonna like be all bummed that it's not working. We're
Right.
now just still being people who are having fun, but this is a more of a future thing for Anime Expo than it is a now thing, because like if these issues, and it seems been happening for a number of years, if they keep going at this rate, and if they keep this dysfunction, and not everything working out, this could lead to very well a whatever drastic changes, or that could possibly really affect the anime convention, and also affect the people's interest in even going.
I think the right word would be exodus, because Anime Expo is big in the U.S. It's relatively big in the world stage. However, when you think about the locals, the ones who probably spend the most money to get there, there's a lot of other choices in the California circuit, and that circuit is growing.
Yes.
On top of which, you got a lot of people who plan months ahead of time because they're coming in from out of the country, but they do, when they come here, make new friends who are local, who are going to form their own opinions. And people run in groups. They run in circuits at these things. Very rarely does someone run by themselves.
Right. Definitely.
So if their friends stop going to Axe, how long is it before they stop going?
Yes, because you gotta think, like, as long as we're okay, because like I like to envision that we're the veterans of going to anime conventions, and we're gonna keep doing this as long as we can. But like, you gotta think, eventually some of these people who are going to these anime conventions are not gonna be going as much as they get older, or they might get jobs, or start a family or whatnot, and you got to think generation wise. It's like Pokemon. Like, I'm just saying, because like Pokemon, they always have a new Pokemon for each generation. Like, they've recently come out with Pokemon X and Y. They had Pokemon Black and White prior, Black and White 2, and basically in each generation of, as long as the Game Boy and Nintendo is around, there always is a new Pokemon game to introduce to little kids, because that's their plan, and that's how everybody raised in kind of know about video games, was through Pokemon in some sort of way.
Right.
You have to think long term when it comes to conventions, as far as like the next generation of kids or teenagers, like, you want to appeal to, so that they can come back later and keep coming again and again. I've known the issues are going behind the scenes for a while, but I never knew that it was going to be this bad, or as far as like, this is as bad as it can possibly get.
Yeah, and things may actually be getting worse than you think it is.
Mm,
Just before Anime Expo started, word came out that the LA Convention Center, its management is changing hands.
is it again? Oh,
This
wow.
The city is still going to own it, but either they already have or in the near future they're turning over the management to AEG. AEG is going to get paid $250,000 a year to run the convention, to run the convention center. Now, some people will say that, well, this doesn't change anything. This could change a few things because the SPJA likes to brag about how much money it brings to the city of Los Angeles by having the convention every year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they're not bringing money to the city of Los Angeles. They're bringing it to AEG, who now gets to claim to Los Angeles that they, managed to keep Anime Expo instead of brought it there. And this could work in AEG's favor because if the city passes, or if the hotels in the local area pass a certain amount of revenue and taxes,
Mm-hmm.
AEG gets paid an additional $250,000 a year.
Mm.
Also, there's been word that Anime Expo has been running with an operational loss lately of
Yeah,
some sort.
yeah, like I've known that for years. Like they're running a convention, they're losing on every year. I mean, like I know the reason behind the price and everything is so they can to make up that money.
Yeah.
But like they've always seemed to lose a good amount or in depth every year.
Okay, depending on who you ask, the current year may have started with a loss as much as $900,000 to up to $2 million. I don't know. I can't corroborate.
Right.
But
Definitely.
obviously, if they can't pay the bills to the convention center, city's not exactly the best at counting money or collecting bills.
Right. Definitely.
Okay, now consider that if AEG has not taken over as of this year, they'll taken over by the time the Anime Expo starts next year.
Mm-hmm.
Corporations don't become large corporations without knowing how to collect money.
Mm-hmm.
So if the acts can't pay those bills immediately, they may find themselves under a crushing amount of lawyers.
Wow. So this could potentially lead to the demise of Anime Expo.
It could. I've spent a while talking with different people about the eventualities, not hard facts, but eventualities of everything the way it is and how to turn it around and save it. And we're worried that it's basically a patient on life support and someone's standing next to the plug with an axe.
Wow. That's crazy. I'm trying to think. Has there ever been like a big anime convention or anime convention that shut down for so many years? Because
No, there's been smaller ones that like AM2 and Naruto Con that have shut down, but I've never heard of a large one getting shut down.
mm-hmm.
And unless they can find a way to stop hemorrhaging money, at least if everything I understand is true, to stop spending like crazy and actually put some money back in the bank and pay off some creditors, we could be looking at like a 2-year cycle.
Wow, that's insane. It's both. I'm amazed, but both just like thinking like, wow, I have never. I mean, like obviously, people listening, like this could possibly happen. Not to say that 100% it's going to happen and Anime Expo is going to be done in all intents and purposes.
No, there's no absolutes here, but there are a lot of things that need to be considered pretty much immediately.
Definitely.
I mean, is Anime Expo in this much financial trouble? I doubt you'll find anyone that'll admit it because they want to try and save it.
Yeah.
Or
Definitely.
because they just don't want to lose their job. What would happen to all those people if Anime Expo ends? I don't know another convention in the U.S. outside San Diego that could handle that kind of people, and they're already full as it is.
Definitely.
Could anyone sweep in and stand in that spot? Fanime is about the closest one to being able to do that, but they would have to up their prices considerably and move locations immediately, which they're not in a position to do.
Yeah.
About the only one in a position to take over almost immediately would be Japan Expo, assuming the first year got off okay and the people in charge of the main branch in France saw enough of an investment to funnel money into it.
Right, definitely. I want to point out two things before we end this segment because we talked a lot of juicy details behind the scenes. There were two things that stood out to me that I heard from the outside looking in. For the volunteer staff, I heard that the Anime Expo was only giving them half price off on their badges and not giving them free badges. Did you hear any ramblings of that happening? Go ahead. So I was going to let you go.
No, it's okay. Prior to the con, I heard there wasn't going to be any reimbursement for badges for volunteers.
Oh, wow.
So the fact that they may have gotten half, that's news to me.
Wow.
To me, that's kind of a mixed bag because I understand that you need to be able to entice volunteers, But at the same time, I would like to see someone with a little more professionalism than I'm only here for 12 hours so I can, save myself $50.
Right. Because the thing is, though, either way, if I mean, like, it's speculation, but from what I've heard on the interwebs and from people who were going to Anime Expo on their Facebook page, um, that could be a lawsuit because they are work it's unpaid labor technically, and if you're not reimbursing with anything of the sorts, um, it's not good.
That's kind of a catch-22 because by nature you're volunteering. There is no promise of
That's true
reimbursement.
too.
There's only implications of it, and nobody has to follow
That's
through.
true.
But at the same time, I do agree that if other conventions, smaller conventions, have a standard of trying to get you a badge, a prize, something, for Anime Expo to only give them the equivalent of half a badge, it's pretty sad considering the
Right.
size.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, I may be wrong on that, but I definitely, in all intents and purposes, it is something you don't want to do. Especially if people say the same volunteers want to volunteer next year to say that,
Right.
you
I mean,
know,
well, it's a double-edged sword because it is the biggest convention out there. Somebody complained that the reason why staff was so surly was because they were working and didn't get to see everything they wanted to see. At the same time, you signed the paper and agreed to
yeah, it's
volunteer.
true. That is
If
true.
if you're not willing to put in the time to make a better convention, step out of the
Yeah,
way.
that's true. That is very true. The other thing was pointed out. It wasn't until day three that they announced that the dance or the rave at Anime Expo was going to be only 18 and up. Uh,
Right? And then the announcement was only on their Facebook
yeah, I noticed
page.
that too. Would nobody else? So I'm assuming nobody else bothered to look or weren't informed.
There were several people on night 3 as I was walking around who had to jump out of line and were very irritated because, of course, there was no general announcement. There was no main page announcement.
That's
There
interesting.
was no sign. You only got it either by Facebook or by someone yelling in the line when you arrived. So obviously, this is something that's been getting my goat the last few years is that Axe does not announce things in all formats or in large formats. Only in these little squeakers, it is just enough of a legality to get
Right,
by.
definitely. It would save a lot of time and effort for it to they announce it like over the intercom or over like some big signs saying like hey, this is not happening because something happened, whatnot. And,
Well, not only that, they announced it on the Facebook and said that due to unforeseen circumstances, the dances are now 18 and over
I
only.
mean, well,
Well, no one's ever said what the unforeseen
I
circumstances
could.
are. Did the convention center pitch a fit? Did your insurance pitch a fit? Did the fire marshal pitch a fit? Did Mark Perez sit on
I
something?
I
What
have a good I have a
happened?
good I have a good guess, and because this type of deal, okay, first of all, dances of this nature, especially at anime conventions, I don't care like if it's at the anime conventions are made for family fun. Yes, absolutely. I cannot talk today. They are definitely
Right.
there for that, but also think you gotta think like there are older people there who also want to have their fun too. So
Mhm.
um, and the rave is I think is one of those. It's not surprising to me that it should have been 18 and plus prior, or if anything, should have been it and in the first place because let's face it, you're in a you know the music's loud. The lights are off most of the time. People are having fun. But what goes in a rave, yeah, not to say that now if you're an anime convention, but there are issues where like you have underage people who are there dancing with older age people who are, let's just say, for lack of a better term, getting to know each other a bit more too comfortably, um, and other things that might happen within the dance in a very dark area. I'm not surprised that they announced this. It should have been a thing I think in most anime conventions. But that's just my own opinion. Um, but yeah,
Mhm.
I'm cool with them saying that. I just wish they should message it, better to people who were there. Um, Maybe I just for the sake of of it, like have maybe one, I mean, just an suggestion, if Anime Expo is hearing this and it's like, hey, just a suggestion, Anime Expo, like if you have one for older adults and have one for, younger adults. Just
Well, technically they had Lounge 21, which was for the 21 and over crowd, served drinks and all
right.
that. But there is something to be said about whether or not you've actually earned your family image. And I don't know if Anime Expo can say they've still got it when they have a lounge that's hosted by the Cosplay Deviants.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, you do have to measure whether or not it's even a good idea to allow people of a certain age past the front door, past like 8
Right.
o'clock.